Alright, welcome back to the channel, people of God. If you're new here, my name is Prince Èmail, and as you guys can tell by the title, today we are reading the Psalm 144. Alright guys, this is officially day number 29. Okay, and so this is a series we're doing on the channel. So in case you're new, we've been recording or we've been reading through the Psalms for the whole of this month. And so if you're new, do be sure to go back and watch some of the previous videos. All right, so today we are reading from the ESV, and the title does say my rock and my fortress. All right, this is a Psalm of David. And that being said, guys, let us read. All right, Psalm 144, and I read, "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. He is my steadfast love and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield and he in whom I take refuge, who subdues peoples under me. O Lord, what is man that you regard him, or the son of man that you think of him? Man is like a breath, his days are like a passing shadow. Bow your heavens, O Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains so that they smoke. Flash forth the lightning and scatter them. Send out your arrows and rout them. Stretch out your hand from on high. Rescue me and deliver me from the many waters, from the hand of foreigners, whose mouths speak lies, and whose right hand is a right hand of falsehood. I'll sing a new song to you, O God. Upon a 10-stringed harp I will play to you, who gives victory to kings, who rescues David, his servant, from the cruel sword. Rescue me and deliver me from the hand of foreigners, whose mouths speak lies, and whose right hand is a right hand of falsehood. May our sons in their youth be like plants full grown, and daughters like corner pillars, cut for the structure of a palace. May our granaries be full, providing all kinds of produce. May our sheep bring forth thousands and 10,000s in our fields. May our cattle be heavy with young, suffering no mishap or failure in bearing. May there be no cry of distress in our streets. Blessed are the people to whom such blessings fall. Blessed are the people whose God is the Lord. Amen. Alright, people of God, this brings the reading to an end. This was quite a long passage. Alright, and so I'll be going through briefly. I'll read a chunk, right? I'll read like from the 1 up until the 4, and then I'll give a brief explanation since it's such a long passage, and then I'll continue from there, alright? And so starting from the beginning, it reads, "Blessed is the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. He is my steadfast love and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield in whom I take refuge, who subdues peoples under me. O Lord, what is man that you regard him, or the son of man that you think of him? Man is but a breath, his days are like a passing shadow." Alright guys, I'll stop right here. Alright, so reading from the beginning, right, we see David describe God basically. This is a prayer, or this is, a statement made by David, right? And in the beginning, he blesses the name of the Lord and he declares the Lord to be his refuge, right? And so we are seeing David describe who God is to him. And so whilst reading the Psalm, one thing that has stood out over and over again is that David really trusts the Lord, right? And so we see that over and over again in a lot of his statements. And so here we see the same thing. David describes God to be his love, his fortress, his stronghold, his deliverer, right? My shield. It says in the verse 2, my shield and in whom I take refuge, who subdues people under me, right? He recognizes and declares God to be the one who brings him the victories, right? As he says, my shield and he in whom I take refuge, who subdues people under me, right? And so even his victories, even, his battles and everything, he declares it to be the victory of the Lord. And so then my favorite part, right? In the verse 3 says, "O Lord, what is man that you regard him, or the son of man that you think of him? Man is like a breath, his days are like a passing shadow." This psalm, or this specific verse, I have found myself using it like over and over again when I'm praying. And when you just think about just how small we are in comparison to everything else, right? Even us being alive, right? We aren't here for eternity, right? We are just but a speckle of dust, right? In when it comes to time, right? There have been so many people before us, right? And yet still we know that God provides for each and every single one of us. And I would like us to, also be aware that there are other creations of God, right? God created the angels. However, he chose humans, right, to fulfill his will, to fulfill his plans on this earth, right? And so we often see that God, sends angels, right? Whether it is to deliver messages, like, the angel Michael, the angel Gabriel, for instance. And there are so many angels in the Bible we see, but that is to say that they serve God and we serve God as well. But it is important to realize and acknowledge that God gave us a purpose here on this earth, right? And that he made us in his likeness. And so even the angels whom we can believe to be like eternal beings, right? As they do not pass, right? They live in the heavens, and we know in the heavens there's no such thing as death, right? Which is why, Lucifer got sent here on earth, and there is an appointed time where you'll be, chained. But like, we know the angels to be eternal, right? But us as humans, right, since the fall, we will pass, right, until we are with the Lord, right? Our flesh will pass away. Yet still, we see God move mightily through men. We see God use men, right, to fulfill his will here on earth. And that is very significant. And so sometimes I just, it is something that I don't know. I find myself, saying over and over again, like, who is man? Who is man? Who is man? That God is so mindful of, right? But yeah, moving on in the verse 5, he says, bow your heavens, O Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains so that they smoke. Flash forth the lightning and scatter them. Send your arrows and rout them. Stretch out your hand from on high. Rescue me and deliver me from the many waters, from the hand of foreigners, whose mouths speak lies and whose right hand is a right hand of falsehood. And so in this part, we see David call on to God, right, to stand before him, or to stand for him, right, that God should come and rain justice, that God should come and fight for him, right? And then in the verse 9, it says, I will sing a new song to you, O God. Upon a stringed harp I will play to you, who gives victory to kings. Right, I'll say it again. Upon a stringed harp I will play to you, who gives victory to kings, who rescues David his servant from the cruel sword. Rescue me and deliver me from the hand of foreigners, whose mouths speak lies and whose right hand is a right hand of falsehood. Right, we see David, right, ask something of God, and then what follows, right, is thanksgiving. He proceeds to give thanks to the Lord. I believe thanksgiving to be like a norm, to be a standard, right, in the heavens. And this reminds me of, 1 Thessalonians 5, where the Bible says, right, in all things give thanks to the Lord. It is almost like, God knows that things won't always go well, that things aren't always perfect, but he's telling us to give thanks. And I think when we give thanks to the Lord, regardless of what's going on, it highlights the trust that we have in God, right? Because in a sense, if you know God to be God, you will give him thanks, because you know in the end, right, victory is yours, right? And so when the Bible tells us to give thanks, first of all, it confuses the enemy, right? Because it doesn't make sense. But however, secondly, it is almost like it shows us our hearts. It can be challenging, but it takes courage, or it takes trust in order to give thanks to the Lord when things do not look as bright, right? And so even when Jesus healed the sick men, right, when only one returned, he said he was surprised, right? He said, where are the others, right? He was surprised, and even asked whether they were healed, right? We cannot doubt the power of God. Jesus knew that they were healed, yet still he asked that question. Why? Because I think I am led to believe that it is almost like uncommon to know that something has worked out, or to know that victory has been given, right? In this case, these people being healed, and not receive thanksgiving, right? And so that led me into, thinking about how thanksgiving, I believe, is like a standard, right? Because when we go to the heavens, we will be worshiping, we'll be singing and praise gladly to God, right? And that is just a posture of thanksgiving. It is just a whole, celebration of thanksgiving, right? And thanking the Lord and worshiping him. And so thanksgiving is something significant. And so we see that David asks something of God, and then he said, I will sing a new song to you, O God. We ought not to forget to give thanks to the Lord, especially when he does something for us, especially when we ask something of him. And so I'll finish the reading, and then I'll add my final words. Reading from the 12, it says, may our sons in their youth be like plants full grown, and our daughters like corner pillars cut for the structure of a palace. May our granaries be full, providing all kinds of produce. May our sheep bring forth thousands and 10,000s in our field. May our cattle be heavy with young, suffering no mishap or failure in bearing. May there be no cry of distress in our streets. Blessed are the people to whom such blessings fall. Blessed are the people whose God is the Lord. All right, so we see that, here David speaks of, prosperity, right? And then he finishes with the last verse. He says, blessed are the people to whom such blessings fall, right? And then he continues to say, blessed are the people whose God is the Lord, right? And so he kind of attaches those blessings to those who have inherited the Lord, right? And so in a way he's saying that people who have God are those who will inherit these blessings that we just read about, right? And about the verse 12 specifically, it speaks about the youth, right? The men, right? He says, may our sons in their youth be like plants full grown. Why? Because men are supposed to be, like trees that bear fruit. Men are supposed to be, providers. Men are supposed to be, protectors. Men are supposed to be teachers and leaders, right? As we know from the Bible. And actually, I read this book not so long ago, and it speaks literally about, this specific verse, and also about, the second one where it says our daughters like corner pillars, right? It speaks about both. However, this is more directed for men. It is, Understanding the Purpose and Power of Men by Dr. Miles Monroe. And this book, speaks in great detail what this verse is talking about, right? And so without making this video too long, I'll just give the 6 things that this book speaks about, right? It speaks about men being called to be, providers, protectors, leaders, teachers, cultivators, and visionaries, right? And in a sense, it speaks on, the beginning, right? The Genesis, where, we know that God gave the man a plan, right? He says, have dominion, before he actually created, the woman, right? It was later, after God had given man a purpose, that he then said it is not good for man to be alone. And so that is what, without going into too much, without making this video too long, that is what and how we see that it says our daughters like corner pillars that are cut for the structure of a palace, right? And so in a sense, it's speaking about pillars that are very important, pillars that are used in great places, in beautiful places, right? As it says of a palace, right? And so essentially in the book highlights and points out, how great men aren't built without, a woman standing behind them. We always say behind every great man is a woman, and that is, actually true. And we see that. I always say the Genesis is the blueprint of humanity. If you want to know everything, obviously not everything, but like if you want to know the blueprint, right, the manual to our being, it's in the Genesis, right? And so this specific verse, right, speaks on it. I'll repeat it again. It says, may our sons in their youth be like plants full grown, our daughters like corner pillars cut for the structure of a palace. All right, people of God. And so that brings today's reading to an end. I hope and believe that this video has blessed you guys. And that being said, guys, make sure to subscribe if you're new here and turn on your post notifications so that when I do upload tomorrow, you are notified. We are almost done. Leave a like on the video as it helps out the channel a lot. All right, guys, I thank you guys for watching. And again, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.